Hello, welcome to Life Talk for Tuesday, February 26, 2019. I'm Mark Crutcher, and I'm joined by one of the usual suspects, my daughter Sheila. Hello,
Hi.
Sheila.
Hi.
Renee won't be joining us this week, but she will be back next week, we trust.
Yes, hopefully.
And hopefully she will be back next week. Anyway, I want to first bring you up and let you know, of course, we hadn't been around the last couple of weeks.
A lot has been happening both here and, personal lives. You got new glasses.
I got new glasses,
Yep.
and so maybe I can see a little bit better now. And don't you think it makes me even more brutally handsome than I was?
Oh, yeah.
You think so? I thought so too. But that seems to be the general consensus of opinion. But anyway, our rape project continues to get a lot of attention.
America's hidden sex scandal.
Yep, women being raped in abortion clinics, and it's getting a lot of attention on the pro-life side. But it's amazing how quiet the pro-aborts have been.
We've even, through email, contacting them, social media, let them know that it's out there. They just either say, pro-aborts, say, that's not true, or like individuals, or, they just completely ignore it. I mean, you can't defend that.
And we have been in contact with, or contacting, the Me Too movement. All we get from them is crickets. We're not hearing a single thing.
So much for caring about women.
So much for that. That lie has been exposed. And we've contacted about 60, as I remember. Renee has made contact with about 60 politicians that are big-time supporters of the Me Too movement. Not one of them. Well, we have one of them that asked for the report. Every one of the others has said nothing. The secular media is saying nothing. I want you to imagine if somebody on the pro-abortion side came out with a report in which they were able to document, like we were, through secular sources, police reports, convictions, so forth.
Court documents.
If they were able to document that women were being raped at crisis pregnancy centers run by the pro-life movement.
Oh, it would be a firestorm.
This would be the #1 story, lead story on the evening news. It would be all over the social media. It would be, everybody in this country would know about it right now.
Just like the Catholic Church, and just like a few weeks ago, the Southern Baptist Convention thing.
Right, exactly.
They jumped all over that, but silent on this. I mean, it's something that they couldn't defend, and it would just put abortion in the spotlight.
Right.
So they figured that it's better to keep their mouths shut than to try to defend it.
But we are, you in particular, and Sarah in our office are hot and heavy on social media.
Trying to get word out.
Getting this stuff spread around. And it's happening, obviously, because our other websites, like our Babies Born Alive Daily, interview with the 3 abortion clinic workers.
The videos online.
All of that stuff has exploded. I mean, just all of a sudden, and we're averaging, I've been watching that particular website, we're averaging about 5,000 views a day right now.
Well, it's the video on YouTube, on our Life Dynamics YouTube page.
Right.
We have 2, the Life Talk TV one, and then Life Dynamics YouTube page. And the abortion clinic workers is the one that's really gotten a lot of attention. That's probably because of the whole late-term abortion thing that's going on.
Let's talk about that for a minute. We saw in New York and Virginia, and now several other states are doing the same thing, where what they're trying to do is codify Roe.
Right.
So that when it's overturned, there's already state law that allows abortion right up to the moment of birth and even after birth.
Yeah.
Because they are literally making the point, just like the pro-aborts did back in the partial birth abortion hearings in the Senate, that when a woman goes into an abortion clinic for an abortion, she is entitled to a dead baby. And if that baby comes out alive, it's acceptable to kill that baby then, because that woman is entitled to a dead baby. And some of them even made that statement during those partial birth abortion hearings. That's what this is all about. And the interesting thing is that I said at the time when this thing in New York happened that the pro-aborts may be in the process of overplaying their hand.
Right.
And it seems like that's true.
Definitely.
A new Marist poll out shows a spike in people who are now claiming to be pro-life. Just a few weeks ago, it was about an equal mix between pro-aborts and pro-life. Now they say it's a dramatic increase in the number of people claiming to be pro-life.
Well, when you see how these politicians and how these people on the pro-abortion side have such extreme views
Right.
on abortion, then that makes people start to look into it more, look into the issue more and say, that's not right. What else could they not be right on?
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's what people are doing, is they're looking into the issue more.
You know, there's a downside, though, here that the pro-life movement needs to be aware of and adjust our rhetoric to recognize. If all these people are now becoming pro-life because they're upset about the late-term abortion deal and the babies being killed outside the womb, we have to be aware that if these states, let's say New York and Virginia and Rhode Island and Illinois and all these others that are following suit with this, that are going to allow abortion in their state law, right up, literally, they're admitting, right up to, woman could be in labor
Right.
and ask for an abortion, and it'd be legal for her to have one. If they were to come back and say, you know what, we maybe went a bridge too far, we're backing back down,
Yeah.
and we're only going to allow abortions up to 9 months.
Yeah.
We're not going to allow
8
babies
months,
to be killed,
9 months,
You know,
yeah.
we're not going to allow babies to be killed outside the womb just because the abortion fails and the baby comes out alive. My concern is that a lot of these people who are now jumping over to the
Right.
pro-life side are going to say, "Oh, okay, well they fixed that. I'm now back on the pro-choice side."
And that is something that we need to be concerned about. I mean, for instance, the Born Alive Act that Congress just voted down, that bill, people are in uproars about it. But the fact is a baby, whether the baby is inside the womb or outside the womb.
Right.
It's abortion and, is the killing of a baby. The location doesn't matter.
Right.
Once that baby goes through the birth canal, that baby, all of a sudden that baby is a person. No, that baby is already a person.
The magic birth canal.
Right.
The baby goes into it, it's just a blob of cells and comes out a baby.
So location doesn't determine life.
Right.
And so people need to always remember to be outraged about abortion, period.
Right.
Whether it's late term, whether it's, early on in the development of the baby, they need to be mad about abortion no matter what.
Exactly. Anyway, there's something else that came out in New York. The New York Department of Health says, now they put out the statistics on it, that between 2012 and 2014, more babies were aborted in New York State than were born. They had 285,127 abortions, 237,499 live births. That means there were almost 50,000 more babies aborted than born. And, I know other states are not as liberal as New York or not as liberal as California, but don't think that other states aren't headed in the same direction.
No, I mean, it's been happening in Europe and China.
Right.
And now it's starting to happen in the United States.
Yep.
And it causes a lot of issues, like, we can't replenish our population.
Right.
That's one issue. And another issue is that it's a slippery slope, if we allow these babies to be killed, then what makes people think that we're not going to, start taking care of elderly like in China?
Well, I would argue that the slippery slope happened the day we killed the first baby.
Yes, the Roe versus Wade and Dole versus
We
Bolton.
legally murdered the first
Yes.
baby back in 1973. We were on the slippery slope.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just a continuation of it.
It is.
Anyway,
And I would like to, it would be interesting to see those numbers broken down in race, by race.
well, we already know. We saw one a couple of years ago in New York City. 60% of black babies were aborted. 60%.
Right.
For every 10 babies conceived in the city of New York, 6 were murdered.
Where are the Black Lives Matter people on this issue?
They're in the same place. They're hanging out with the Me Too people.
Exactly.
They're all hanging out together.
Yeah.
And they don't care anything about this.
Well, it's time for them to get their heads out of the sand and start putting their actions where their mouths are and actually doing something about this.
But you have to remember, Sheila, we've talked about this many times on previous Life Talks. Abortion is the holy grail of the American godless left.
Yes, that's what they care about.
That's all they care about.
They don't care about anybody else except for themselves and the A word, abortion.
Right. They love them baby killings. Ain't nothing they like better than that. Anyway, we're going to take a break for robots, and when we come back, I'm going to give some information based on a very interesting phone call I got the other day. But anyway, let's take a moment out for robots.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe versus Wade, and those who defend it are known as robots. This is how they think.
As a pastor, I don't get involved in the battle against abortion because my job is to save souls, not bodies. Besides, those babies go to heaven anyway.
I ask you to think about what you just heard. What this person is literally saying is that abortions are acceptable because the people being killed are innocent. Only in some sort of really bizarre parallel universe would this make any sense whatsoever. When I hear a preacher apply this standard to the unborn, my first thought is whether he would apply it to his own children. What I mean is, if he saw that his 5-year-old daughter was about to be murdered, would he try to stop it or just shrug it off because she's going to heaven anyway? Or what if an axe murderer walked in to his church's sanctuary and started hacking at the people sitting in the pews? Would he just look on with a smile, knowing that all these people were on their way to heaven? Or let's say that he was on a jury and it was obvious that the accused was guilty of murdering his wife. Would he let the killer go free if the victim's pastor testified that she was saved and is now in heaven? Also, if a pastor is going to be truly serious about this, wouldn't he have an obligation to immediately kill everyone he leads to Christ? After all, if he pulled out a pistol and shot them on the spot, he would be putting them on the fast track to heaven and eliminating any possibility that they might backslide one day and reject Christ. Of course, any sane person would see this as a perversion of Christian doctrine. And my suspicion is that the pastors who push this save souls, not bodies philosophy in the case of abortion are in reality less concerned about the preservation of souls than they are about the preservation of pro-abortion dollars in the collection plate. And that would make them cowards who deserve no more respect than the abortionists who actually do the killings. Words to live by, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You never lived by any words I ever said.
Good points, though.
Right.
Okay.
You're a daughter. You don't listen to what your daddy says. Oh. But anyway, we're going to try to be more in tune to making our readers, our viewers, understand the internal workings of the abortion industry. At Life Dynamics, we get a view of the abortion industry that even other pro-life groups don't get because of the nature of the stuff that we do. Yes. And I had a phone call this past Saturday when I was here from a woman who's repeating a call I had a similar situation many years ago. Her situation was her daughter was an RN in New Jersey and worked in a woman's clinic that's attached to a hospital. And this girl the daughter is very pro-life. Right. Made sure that when she went to work for this place that they didn't do abortions, didn't allow abortions to be done on the place. Right,
which is a good thing if you're a nurse.
If you're a nurse, yes. That's what you're there for, is to save lives, not kill them. Anyway, she recently discovered that one of the doctors that she doesn't work with very often, but that works in this practice, had referred a woman for an abortion. And she started checking it out and found out that this was fairly common for this guy to do. Right. And she's now thinking about leaving her job. The good news, according to her mother, is that there's a major shortage of RNs in the area and that she'll be able to get a job. She said within an hour she'll have another job.
Across the United States, but yeah.
Right. She said within an hour she'll have another job as an RN. But she's still puzzled as to why, and that's what this mother called me about. She said, why did this doctor do this? Why would a doctor advise this sort of thing? And I had a case many years ago when we were doing a lot of medical malpractice on women who'd had injuries.
Right.
We had a case out of Virginia where a woman had been trying to get pregnant for 7 years, she and her husband. She had infertility problems. And she was going to this OBGYN, and she goes to him one day, and because she thought she might be pregnant, turns out that she was. Now, this is the guy that's been treating her, trying to help her get pregnant for 7 years. He starts hammering on her to have an abortion. And
I would say goodbye.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
too. And this lady was very traumatized. And she said, she told this doctor, she told the doctor, she said, if my baby has purple skin and 12 toes on each foot, I don't care.
Right.
It's my baby, I'm not going to have an abortion. He started calling her at home and advising her to have an abortion. You need to do something. You need to do something about this quickly. This is threatening your life. He then started calling her husband and saying, look, I understand you guys are opposed to abortion. You've been trying to get pregnant for a long time, but you're going to lose your wife and your baby, and you need to encourage her to have an abortion. He started hammering on her. She finally caved in, had an abortion. The reason that she was contacting us is that she was sent the pathology report on the unborn baby that she aborted, along with the copy of it being sent to the abortionist, that showed a perfectly normal fetus.
Which, I mean, abortions don't happen hardly ever because of the life of the mother or there's something wrong with the baby.
That's very rare, but
Very
in this case,
rare.
The doctor either was lying or he misread something.
Right.
And she said when she saw that there was nothing wrong with the baby, she lost it. The last contact we had with this poor lady, the stress that this had caused in her life had caused her to having to get a divorce. She and her husband broke up.
Oh, yeah.
In addition to that, she was in a lockdown psychiatric ward the last time we had any contact.
Which, I mean, is not surprising.
No. But the thing she couldn't understand is why this guy that knew she was trying to get pregnant was so adamant about her having an abortion. We got her a malpractice attorney, and we started working on this case. He had to sue this doctor to get the medical records.
Yeah.
He didn't want to release
yeah.
the records, so we knew something was fishy.
Yeah.
When we looked at the records, one of the things that we found was that she had come to this same doctor's office 2 weeks earlier complaining she thought she had the flu. They didn't do a pregnancy test on her. And they gave her a drug to treat what they thought was the flu. They were not sure it was, but that's what they thought she had. They gave her a drug that if you look in the physician's desk reference, says you never give to pregnant women, can cause birth defects.
Right.
So they gave her that without checking to see if she was pregnant.
So they were trying to cover that up.
2 weeks later, she's back, and they find out at the time they gave her, he looks at the chart and says, uh-oh,
Yeah.
we gave her this drug. I used to know the name of it. I can't remember it now. We gave her this drug. If this baby comes out with problems, we're going to be in the soup.
Right. And you wonder how often that happens across the country.
That was the other thing. Well,
Right.
we could clearly tell what happened here by the medical records. He was trying to isolate himself from a malpractice lawsuit by encouraging her to have an abortion. We started going back and looking at some of our other files, and we found that this was not very uncommon.
No.
When we would start asking women that would call us about a malpractice, why did you decide to abort? You'd be amazed how many of them said that their doctor told them it was the best thing for them to do was to abort because they had a problem pregnancy. And what we clearly saw was that whether it was, in some cases we thought it was just laziness. This OBGYN did not want a complicated pregnancy. It's a lot of work, there's a lot of risks involved, and so forth. It's easier just to kill that baby and create another baby and hope that pregnancy is better.
Move on.
And move on.
Yeah.
The other thing, but the bigger problem was they're trying to insulate themselves from medical malpractice claims.
Right.
So they can kill that baby. And the way we discovered this, there's something very interesting. If you're an OBGYN and you've got a patient that you legitimately think needs to have an abortion to save her life, why wouldn't you do the abortion?
Yeah.
And what we found was that when you have a doctor pushing abortions on someone, pushing abortions, and the women do them, how often does the doctor do them? If the doctor who's
Hardly
pushing the
ever.
abortion was not doing the abortion, that was a red flag. That told us And one of the attorneys that was working on this was the one who first instantly saw this. He said, well, let me tell you what's happening here. He's looking for what's called contributory negligence. He doesn't want to be the only one involved.
He wants to drag other doctors into
other
it.
people into it. So now, if he can encourage her to have an abortion, and he says, oh, by the way, I don't do them, but you might want to go to a Planned Parenthood or some other abortion clinic and get your abortion. Then if something does come up, he now has someone else he can point the finger at. And we used to see this all the time. No, I didn't cause the problem. Planned Parenthood caused the problem. And the Planned Parenthood lawyer is saying, no, we didn't cause the problem, he caused the problem.
Right.
And what usually winds up happening is the woman is left out in the cold. And so we started looking at these cases, and like I said, the big red flag for us was, if he was encouraging an abortion, but he was not going to do it,
Willing to do it.
there's something wrong here.
And there's probably a high rate at which that happens. And also, if you look at the other aspect of when women, you hear out in the news of women saying, hey, my doctor, told me to have an abortion, referred me for an abortion, but I said no. The baby is born, and the baby is perfectly fine.
Right.
I mean,
a lot of that.
Yeah, you hear a lot of that, and it doesn't matter whether the baby is born with some, problems or not.
Still a baby.
Exactly. Right. But you hear that all the time, and so you wonder how many, cases, how many lives could be saved if it wasn't for these these doctors doing it.
Well, it's a good example of something we've talked about here many, many times in the past. Abortion screws up everything it touches.
Well, I mean,
everything.
It shows the lack of respect that people have for life. And if you don't have respect for life, what kind of respect can you have for anything?
Yeah, well, I've said many times, if you're female and you're seeking a physician, an OBGYN, let's just say, first thing you ask him, does he do abortions? If he does abortions, you pick your stuff up and leave.
Right. How can you trust him? You can't.
You can't trust him.
No.
The second thing you want to know is, okay, if you don't do abortions, do you refer for abortion? If you do, if he does, pick your stuff up and leave.
That shows a lack of respect for life, that doctor can't be trusted. And, what other things does that doctor do? You can't trust the doctor.
You can't trust him. You cannot have faith in anybody that would either kill a baby or be a part of the chain that leads to the baby
or
being killed.
a supporter of killing of
saying.
children.
Right.
I mean, doctors' jobs are to help heal and save lives. If they're doing the opposite, then I don't trust them.
Right.
Period. End of story.
That's and we've seen many examples of this. I've dealt with a lot of women over the year. I remember over the years on this. I remember a woman years ago called me, and she was in Arkansas, and she had had 5 children, and 4 of them had been delivered by this one OBGYN. And she found out that he was doing abortions. She went nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, she went, she's wheels off, And what she did was, she knew, this was a little town in Arkansas, she knew a lot of the women that also went to him.
Yeah.
She got a hold of every one of them, and she took about 8 or 9 women down to his clinic.
Good for her.
And sat in the waiting room and said, we're here to see Dr. whatever his name was, and we're not leaving till he comes out. And he wound up losing about half of his patients in that city. I think maybe eventually he left that city. But this lady just put pressure on him. She's waiting for him in the parking lot.
Good for her. And that also shows how much people don't respect doctors that do abortions. The fact that he lost half of his clientele once they found out that he did abortions, they don't want to be anywhere near a doctor that does abortions.
I think even a significant number of women who would label themselves pro-choice would say, I'm pro-choice, but I'm not going to let one of these people touch me.
No, he can perform abortions on other people, but, I think I'll find a different doctor. And also, a lot of people don't like going to the doctor, period. But if you add on top of that, if they knew that they were going to an abortion doctor,
Yep.
then
They're not going to even want to go even more.
and which is why campaigns are so effective. You know, if you have a doctor that's living in your neighborhood
Yep.
that does abortions,
Out him.
yeah, out him, and there's still that stigma that's attached to abortion.
Should be. Anyway, that's an example I want to make of how we're going to try to start having more educational, just purely educational, more than news items, to show people how the abortion industry works, because most people would have no idea about something like this, for example, that they might question, like, why would this doctor be pushing abortion? I think he's a good Christian guy, or whatever you might think of him. Why would he be pushing abortions? He's pushing abortions to insulate himself from malpractice. And it's another example of how abortion destroys everything it touches. And it goes beyond the unborn baby. It is something, there's no right way to do a wrong thing.
No,
That's the bottom line. But anyway, we're going to have more segments like that. We're out of time. You got anything?
No, just encourage people to share the Rape Project, America's Carefully Hidden Sex Scandal. They can go to lifedynamics.com/rape.
Right.
On there's a petition that people can sign to try to get a federal investigation into this.
Also, they need to order the business cards. And we have sold a lot of the business cards.
The action cards.
The action cards that you can put around. And we've had some calls. We've had some people call that had picked up one of the cards that was left around somewhere. So they're just little business cards, and it says something like, what business is a woman most likely to be raped
What
in?
industry.
What industry or whatever. And it directs people to the website to read that report. It's been very effective so far. And, we make those cards available very cheaply, and you can just give them out wherever. But anyway, that's it.
Yep,
We're
that's
done.
it.
Stick us with a fork. We'll be back next week, and Rennie will be back too. So nice show, Sheila.
Thank you. And next week I might have glasses on. It's still me,
That's right.
but you got new glasses, and I found out that I have to start wearing glasses. So
Yeah, well, you're getting old.
no,
You're closing in on 30, Sheila.
I know. I didn't think I would need glasses though.
But you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week. Next Tuesday, we'll be looking for you again. And remember, until then, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next week.